Hello, my name's Andrew Brunt. I'm a resident here in Longhorsley, and this is Archie's Pond. Archie's Pond is at the western end of a strip of registered common either side of the West Road, which through benign neglect has developed into quite a dense area of scrub either side of the road. But the interesting thing about here is that we've got a path through it right up to the western end. Scrub is not a very pleasant term to apply to a habitat type, but it's actually very important and is increasingly rare in Britain. We've got all kinds of blackthorn, hawthorn and dense ground cover, varieties of heights of trees and wet areas. So this big variety of vegetation in such a small area gives a lot of opportunities for our resident birds and migratory birds to actually find places to nest and breed successfully at this time of year. And here we are on the 2nd of May, and it's a nice spring morning, or should be, and I've already heard birds like willow warbler and chiffchaff, which are trans-Saharan migrants, and they come all the way to use places like this for a few months in the summer in the breeding season. And we can have walks along here. We don't have to use the road, which would be quite dangerous because of this path, and I've been in the habit of taking small groups along to listen to birds. People are often familiar with the garden birds, the ones you get resident, like robin, blackbird and so on, in their own gardens and in urban areas. But migratory birds like the willow warbler and chiffchaff, blackcap, whitethroat, which all occur here, are not that likely to be found in anything but the biggest of gardens.
Now, as we've heard by the traffic rumbling past, it's not exactly a secluded area, but what is it that makes this area so attractive to birds? What do they find here to attract them?
It's the big variety and structure of the vegetation, which has not been really managed intensively for at least 40 years. So what we've got are different, when they arrive in spring, what they find is vegetation already here. They're not waiting for things to grow, so they've got nesting places. Most of these birds I mentioned actually breed in little cup nests close to the ground. So they want long grass, they want gorse, they want tangled patches of brambles where they can get in and find places to build their nest, as well as finding the insect food. And because the trees here, we've got wild cherry, we've got sallows and willows, and these all produce the early bit of flowers and pussy willow and so on, where there's insects, and the insects are what the birds want. All birds, apart from maybe wood pigeon, are going to feed their young insects. It's insect protein they want, and we get a big collection, big variety of plants here, so there's a big variety of insects and different sort of feeding opportunities, both on the ground, on the fields either side. They do use the fields either side if they're a ground feeder, but we get birds up in the trees, and what they're looking for is little eggs of caterpillars, eggs of moths, caterpillars, and so on. And I can hear a chaffinch in the background there.
Now, if people come to see or hear the bird life here, what's the best time of day?
Right. Well, the best time of day is, we've often heard, I'm sure lots of people have heard of the dawn chorus. It's not necessary to get up early. A morning visit on a fine morning will produce the birds, if you're patient and you walk quietly and stand every so often. When you hear something, even if you don't know what it is, you stand and watch and wait, and something will show. The birds will start behaving normally. You'll blend in, and so mornings are generally good. In the height of summer, the middle of the day is probably not so good. And bird activity steps up again towards the evening. As to the time of year, May and June are when all these our resident birds, like the finches and the thrushes, and the visitors like the chitchat and willow warbler are really, and the blue tits and so on, are very busy feeding the birds. And so there's so much movement going on, birds with food heading for nest sites and looking for food, that is when you will see them. And that kind of activity goes on pretty well all day. When the birds have got a nest full of chicks, you know, they really are pushed for it and have to get out and find the caterpillars, find the worms and so on, and catch flies and so as it may be.
In Longhorsley, I would imagine you'd be delighted to have a resource like this on your own doorstep.
It is. Well, anybody in the village can get out for a short walk up here, and apart from the traffic noise, which again early in the morning is perhaps is least troublesome, you're actually in a different world. It's unusual to have a resource like this so close to a growing village, you know, because there are more and more people living in the village, and it's good to have a place like this where you can walk relatively safely, well, certainly safely, and relatively clean as well. You don't have to go plodging through muddy fields.